And let's introduce you the next speech. This block we will talk about. Are you ready? JAMstack. Well, JAMstack is the new standard architecture for the web, which helps us to build faster, secure, scalable, and maintainable web application. For Angular application to embrace JAMstack, we have the Savior and Scully, the first static site generator for Angular. In this talk, we will learn how you can accelerate your Angular application with JAMstack using Scully. This talk will help you to understand how JAMstack can be beneficial to your Angular app development. So, we have here and a special guest. This is Steffi Karen Rainey. Welcome, Steffi.
Hello, hi. It's great to be
Welcome.
here.
Nice to have you here. So, the microphone is all yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. So I'll start by sharing my screen.
Well, let me share you a little bit of the who Steffi is. Well, Steffi is a full stack developer and competitive programmer with more than 3 years of experience building web applications. She's a lead of engineer at Samsung.
That was a quite really great introduction. Thank you. And I'll just share my screen. I'm just finding.
Sure, sure. Take your time. Do you need some
Oh,
help?
no, I think I am done. Yes, share. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Was a great introduction. So, first of all, a very big hello to every one of you and a huge round of applause for all those who are attending this Anglo Global Summit. It's been 3 great, amazing days, and I couldn't tell you how much new, interesting, while mind-blowing stuff that I learned out of this conference. Huge thank you to all the speakers and the organizers of this wonderful conference, and I hope that you too would learn something out of this presentation. And yeah, let's just jump in. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I am lead engineer at Samsung Bangalore. I've been with Angular since 2018, and it has helped me a lot in building uh, beautiful web portals in just very less amount of time. And yeah, ever since that, it has been my favorite work framework. And I have listed down my Git ID. Do check it out, and you could find some cool, interesting repositories there. So, so the main subject of our presentation is Scully. So, to give you a brief background about what Scully is, I'm going to talk to you about what JAMstack is first of all, and what is SSG, and how they are both related to Scully. Okay. So when I first came across this JAMstack, I was like, oh, we have mean stack, we have MERN stack, clam stack. What is this new term, fancy term, JAMstack? Then I understood that JAMstack is not basically a combination of a group of technologies or something, but it is an architecture, a methodology in which you develop the apps. And look what I found. So current day scenario is when a user is visiting your website, so API calls are being fired from your browser to the web server. In the backend, in response to that API calls, some program wakes up and it sends queries to the database. Now the database, based on the query that was given to it, fetches the results, and it is going to return back to your program, backend program, and it returns back to the server. So this doesn't happen in like a fraction of a nanosecond and all. Sometimes it can even go beyond 2 seconds. And do you think when a user constantly has to wait 2 seconds, He's going to visit the website again and again. Even psychology studies says that the landing speed, I mean the speed at which your landing page renders, has contributed a large proportion to the mental health of the human beings, like lot of frustrations. So it just doesn't stop here, like this whole flow. When when a website goes live and it is cloud native, you need to take care about cloud provisioning, monitoring, and cache invalidation if you have a caching server, and release engineering, because every bit of code has to go through the entire cycle of the deployment cycle and everything, like release engineering and security updates, and fingerprinting if it is a CDN, and versioning and replication and migration. There are a lot of other things also that we have to take care, and that just for a website. Okay, so so this page, I mean, I have summarized the all the concerns that we saw in the previous slide here. So first and foremost, one thing that gets affected the most is the site speed. So when the user has to constantly wait for the page to load, obviously the speed, the SEO rank of that particular website is gonna go down. And when the SEO site is gonna go down, the traffic to your website is also going to get affected. And second thing is reliability. So say for example, some program which worked well in the staging environment or the local environment, but suddenly behaves weirdly in the production, and it has led to some crash in the database. What happens? The entire website goes down. So reliability issues are there. And third most important thing is security issues, because our front facing UIs are so tightly coupled with the databases. some some avenue for SQL injection can lead to a huge security breach in the database. Yeah, so you might be wondering, like, this is this has been with all the, like, with our current present day technologies, like, is there any solution to this? Like, we have optimized, like we used to do, like, uglification, minification, just to reduce the bundle size, and we tend to do, we reduce the number of API calls from the browser to the server. So many optimizations we do, but still, like, the site speed might still remain stale. So is there a solution that will solve all the problems that we just saw? And luckily, yes. I'm going to go in detail on all these points the later of this presentation, but for now, I'm just going to highlight one important thing. The first and most important solution is lies in the fourth point, that is, when you generate or when you pre-render all your views ahead of time, and you just decorate it with JavaScript and put it in some CDN, the speed of the website is matchless. Because when it comes for speed, nothing is going to beat static sites. But here, when we talk about modern websites, like, it's not like the websites that was there in Timberlee's time. Here, everything is dynamic. Even the contents that is coming in the landing page depends upon the API response. So you might ask me, how do we actually pre-render some page? How is it possible? So that is possible when you make the API calls during the build time, not in the runtime. So generally we do the calls in the runtime and the web page is rendered during the runtime on the fly. But rather than that, why don't we make API calls during the build and pre-render all the views, all the page views in the form of templates, and just deliver it to the user through a CDN. So basically CDN is a distributed network. So it takes care such that the content that is delivered to the user is being served from a server that is very next to him. Say for example, I'm in Chennai, India. So I go to a website, and the content for that website is being delivered from Bangalore because it's very close, right? So now you might have got a slight glimpse of what JAMstack is, because JAMstack, the core of JAMstack lies in pre-rendering all the views into, like, pre-rendered templates, and you just decorate it with JavaScript, and the backend is just abstracted to a list of APIs. I mean, the APIs are being consumed during the build time itself, and it's just like the static files are all there and everything. And when the user comes to your website, the load time is just in a fraction of a nanosecond. It's unbelievable. So when we embrace these values, your SEO is going to go high. And because there is no tight coupling between your front end and your back end, the security is going to go high. And also that when it comes for scaling, it just going to matter in terms of the number of files that you are going to deliver in the number of places. So basically, it just is restricted to the number of places you are going to scale it. So there are so many advantages with JavaScript API markup, and with this, we can get rid of a very complicated flow which you see in this left side to something like this. So here, when a user is coming to the page, the view is already there. So it gets delivered to him from a CDN, that is a server which is very close to him, and APIs are abstracted. So the whole backend is abstracted in the form of APIs that say, for example, when you want to perform a checkout, and all you have to do is you can use open APIs of Stripe or Paytm or PayPal. Or say, for example, you want to do authentication, you can make use of Auto or some other API providers APIs. So in that way, this UI, the front end is not tightly coupled with the backend, or sorry, with the database. So that way, the surface area for the attack is also very much reduced. And because this contents are static, the performance is going to go high, and in that way, the SEO is going to high. The traffic to your website is also going to high. So now you know what JAMstack, JAM stands for. J stands for JavaScript, A stands for APIs, and M stands for markups. So the main goal of JAMstack is to deliver safe, fast, and dynamic sites without relying on web servers. So till date, when you build an Angular application for the prod, we need to run a node server all the time, right? But with JAMstack, you can get rid of that. So basically, your contents are being delivered from a static server that is hosted by in some CDNs. Okay. So JAMstack has three main values at its core. So first thing is pre-rendering all the views and caching all maximum number of API calls, because all these API calls are being made during the build time. You can cache so many, like maximum number of API calls. I'm not saying all the API calls, maximum API calls. And also that you can supply the static content from a CDN. So it's very close. So any JAMstack website is one that will check all these values, pre-rendering all the views, it's ahead of time, and caching maximum API calls and supplying them from the CDN. So in the right side, you can see the advantages of JAMstack, like how it helps us to drive more traffic, better performance, and higher scale of security and scalability. So a JAMstack site is not a static site, neither it is a dynamic site, but a dynamically generated static site. So what are static site generators? Static site generators are the tools that help to convert your web application into pre-rendered set of templates. So as I have mentioned here in the bold, instead of waiting until a page is requested and then generating its view on demand each time, an SSG is going to do it in advance so that the view is always ready to serve. The user don't have to wait. So this is a beautiful diagram. So where you can see like the data and the content are being bundled, and first it is getting bundled into the list of HTML, CSS, and JavaScripts, and the static site generator is going to call the APIs during the build time and is going to generate pre-rendered websites, pre-rendered templates. And now what you have to do is all you have to do is you just have to ship these set of pre-rendered templates to a hosting site, and tada, users don't have to wait anytime. So we have, these are a list of SSGs that are available, and there are more number of SSGs that are still there in the market. You can visit jamstack.org, which will give you a lot of SSGs. So these SSGs are there, but the point is, Angular didn't have one till December 2019. Thanks to Hero Devs for bringing in such a beautiful, wonderful creation in Scully. So it was created by Aaron Frost and his team in a company called Hero Devs. So Scully is the first and currently the only one static site generator available in the market. So using Scully, what we are going to do is we are going to pre-render the entire Angular application into a set of pre-rendered HTML templates, and we are just going to host it directly on a CDN, and it's there up for the viewers. So you might be asking, oh, React had Gatsby, and there are so many SSGs available. Why is Angular so late to the party? So Angular did have one, like it did have SSG, but it did have SSR. But as you might have learned from the presentation given by Stephen, you would have known what are the disadvantages when it came for SSR versus SSG. So Scully helps us to overcome all those disadvantages. And let's dive more deep into Scully. So for the starters, Scully is the first static site generator for Angular. When it comes to configuration and integration, it requires minimal to zero effort. It's just a single command, like init command, just have to run it and you're all set. And it has support for Markdown. So say for example, you want to create a blog site and you don't want to go for like HTML tags and those things. You just want to like go in the form of Markdown, and Scully has support for that. And the most beautiful thing about Scully is it has automatic route discovery. For static routes, like for well-defined routes which are not dynamic, Scully is making use of Angular's route config as well as guest parser. Guest parser is a machine learning tool using which Scully can detect, can extract all the routes in your Angular application. And when it comes for dynamic routes, Scully has inbuilt plugins, and you can also write your own custom plugins whereby all the dynamic routes are discovered. Why I am stressing on the route discovery is, without route discovery, there is not going to be a page, because routes are the essential ones, right? So as many routes are discovered, as many pages are going to be created. So route discovery is like a backbone for Scully, and it has a huge support for plugin system. And this plugin ecosystem is really good, and I would recommend you to visit Scully's official site, and you can go through all the plugins already available and how to create custom plugins as well. So with Scully, as you can see here, it does a caching, it does a pre-rendering, it also, and after caching and pre-rendering, all you got to do is just put all your pre-rendered templates into a CDN. So if you remember, these three are the core principles of JAMstack. So JAMstack values are, it has to cache all the API calls. So Scully has this transfer state, which is a service of Scully, using which it makes the calls during the build, and it caches them, and it just ships them. I mean, once it's cached and once all the views are pre-rendered, you just have to ship it to a CDN. So it's pre-rendered and it is CDN. So using Scully, we can achieve 100% of JAMstack values. So when after integrating integrating Scully to your Angular website, you can for sure say that your site is a JAMstack site, which is a dynamically generated static site, and it's hyper dynamic. So route discovery, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important. It's the backbone of Scully. So there are two types of routes. One is the static routes and dynamic routes. For static routes, like you see, like home, crew, and dragons, I'm just giving an example. Scully makes use of the Angular routing config. As you can see, like we have this app routing module.ts, so where you define the routes for your modules. So Scully uses that, and it also uses the guest parser, which is going to extract the routes. So static routes are done. Now we move on to the dynamic routes. Say for example, there are let's say you have a crew of 10 members. For 10 members, you're going to open a details page. So earlier what we did, like the details page always depends upon the API response. But now the API calls are being made during the build time. So during the build time itself, you have those views as well. So for that, you need the routes, right? So those routes are auto-extracted using built-in plugins. And in case, if you want to expand it, you can still use custom plugins. You can write your own plugins, as you can see here, and you can mention it. You can mention like, I have created a My Crew ID plugin, and you can integrate it like that. So once your configuration of static and dynamic routes are done, and when you run this npm run Scully standards, which is used for discovering the routes, what happens is Scully is going to register all the available routes for your web application in Scully-routes.json file. So here you can see the static routes, and you can see here the dynamic routes also. So this is just a high level flow of what happens behind the hoods. So in your CLI, first you will have to do, you have to run ng build prod. So what ng build prod does it will convert your entire Angular application into a bundle of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And you might have seen that in your dist folder. So after this build happens, the all the files like HTML, index.html, and other files, assets, everything gets bundled into the dist folder. And post that, when you run npx Scully is same as npm run Scully scan routes. And what happens is Scully will generate the list of the routes, and it will start the static server for the prod build. And not just that, it will start the Puppeteer instances. So what Puppeteer instances does is it's going to pre-render. So it actually Puppeteer runs on headless browser, and it pre-renders all the views for the routes that you discovered. So once that it loads, then you get a stable signal. So when Scully receives a stable signal that is Angular ready, it is going to save all those files, all those index.htmls, be it for static routes or be it for dynamic routes. All the files, index.html files, are being saved in a place called dist slash static. And once this is done for every route, then Scully is going to give a command, all done. So this is what I have summarized here. So this you can find in Scully's official website also. So first what happens is Scully is going to extract the routes, and you can also specify the extra routes just to help the Scully. Okay? And now you can you can also define the unhandled routes, and you can also write your own plugin. So this, for handling the unhandled routes and the extra routes, you can define inbuilt plugins as well as custom plugins. And once this plugin's route discovery is done, all the routes are being stored in Scully-routes.json file. Okay, so now the routes are done. The second process is rendering. So after this, then a trigger for rendering all the HTML files is given, and Scully. So once Scully is done with rendering all the HTML files, it's gonna give all done, which we saw in yeah. So this process ends. So with Scully, like when a user is going to request for this page is already there. So this is a static server in your CDN. So you just have to just respond. So basically, the complex flow that we saw in the first early slides, like the constant flow, that complex flow from the browser to the server and to a backend program, everything is remote. So it's just like you request for this particular dynamic page, but the dynamic page was already dynamically generated as a static site. So you just get a response. So now let's come to the development process. What you have to do in order to integrate the Scully into your project. So first thing is you need to create an Angular project with a version of 9 or above, and you need to add Scully to it. So I will give the comments in the later slides. And you can, for dynamic sites, you can inject like as I showed in the previous slide about how like you can inject some plugins for the dynamic route discovery, and you can push your code into the Git, raise a pull request, and once it's merged, you can use Git actions, and using the Git actions, you can write a workflow such that it automatically gets posted. So posted to a CDN. Okay. So for the setup, these are the commands. So installation is just a single command, ng add @Scully.io init. So once installation is done, and you can run this npm run Scully for discovering the routes, and for the production, which is the most important one, you need to give this ng build hyphen prod, and you just have to give the scan route. So it's just like a handful of commands, and it's super easy. So another main condition for setup is your Angular app should be route enabled. So Scully configuration is basically how Scully is actually coupled to the Angular is basically by the injection of the Scully lib module. So when you run this ng add @Scully.io init, this Scully is going to inject the Scully lib module. This is the bridge. It's a link between the Angular and the Scully. So, and So when we are building it, we just have to run this ng-build prod and then scan routes. And for the interest of time, I'm just skipping to the next slide. So once you have generated your static files, you just have to host it. So there are several options. You can upload, you can host it via in Netlify. We have Firebase, or you can use GitHub pages or GitLab. We have Azure static web apps. You can just upload it to S3 or Vercel. So there are a lot of options. Just listed few. So in my case, for my demo, I uploaded. I used Firebase. So when it comes to Firebase, what you have to do is you have to run npm install -g Firebase tools, and you just have to log in. So before that, one main thing is you need to create a project. Like just click on add project and just create a project. And once you log in, and you just have to give the Firebase in it. So let me show you what happens when you give Firebase in it. So Firebase in it, it will ask you what is the purpose of using Firebase. So you can just choose the hosting, select the hosting, and then it will ask like what is the directory. So in our case, the Scully is going to put all the pre-rendered HTML files in the dist/static. So I am giving that, and then it will ask you a few questions like whether you want to override few HTML files, like 404 files, like that. So just have to give no, and just keep giving no, and Firebase initialization is done. Once this initialization is complete, all you have to do is give Firebase deploy, and I run this Firebase deploy, and let's see, and it's deploying to, I have already created a project, so it is deploying there. Cool, deployment is done. So this is the same page that I have deployed. I don't know like if this will open. Anyways, I need to share screen. It's fine, I guess. Anyways, you can visit this website. So that's where I have deployed this demo app. And also feel free to check out my Git repository. It will come in handy for you. So this is, so I ran this Lighthouse stats for reports for two websites. So one was just having just pure Angular, and other was the other I integrated Scully. And I was just like, it was unbelievable. Like the performance, like from 45 to 92. It's insane, right? So that's what Scully does to you. It just shoots up your performance to a very high level. So there are a few notes. So as you might have heard from Stephen Surov's presentation, like when it comes for generating thousands of pages, like if you have so many modules in your page, in your project, it's always better to opt for Angular Universal. You can try that. And since Scully is a very young tool, you should try it, and it's growing at a very phenomenal speed, and it has a very beautiful plugin system. And yeah, so, and I would recommend you to visit, I have listed down a few of the references. I would recommend you to visit the websites listed here, and some YouTube videos, and there are like really cool amazing podcasts also on JAMstack, and do listen to them. And yeah, that's it. And I would love to thank the whole community of Geekle for giving this opportunity, and my current employer, Samsung. And yeah, do post your questions, and we'll love to answer them all in the Q&A session. Thank you.
And we're definitely include Scully in Angular. Thank you for your advices.
Thank you.
And guys, feel free to join us on the Q&A sessions in order to ask any question to Steffi. Thank you, Steffi. See you later.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.